What's good? It's your boy, the Dope Black Lawyer. And let me turn this off before I get a copyright strike. Hope it's not too late. Uh, it's your boy, the Dope Black Lawyer, coming to you this week, Thursday at 3. As you know, I'm down in the MIA. Let us know right now where you're tuning in from. Go ahead and drop that in the comments for us right now. Anywhere in the world, just go ahead and let us know where you're at. And before we get too far, I want to let you know that we will be talking today about how the governor of Florida and his henchmen believe that slavery, folks, is a resume builder. So being a slave is something that you can throw on your resume, and it's not just a negative thing that happened in history. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. As I said, I'm Josh Jones, ESQ, also known as the Dope Black Lawyer. This is where we come every week. We get together and we just kind of go over some of the top stories that are affecting the culture. Some of it involves entertainment. Some of it involves making money and different things like that, different lawsuits that got filed. But all of it is things that is relevant. All right, we're not going to be talking about no Johnny Depp and whoever his ex-wife. We're not talking about that. We're talking about stuff that impacts the culture. So welcome to Law and Hip Hop if this is your first time, and welcome back if you're an OG. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm in the 305. JT from the City Girls, also down here from Miami. She's got a new program that she's starting for women who are being brought back into society, returning citizens, helping them to get jobs, to get housing, therapy, all of those types of things. It's called No Bars Reform. And if you know anything about JT, then you know that she did a 2-year sentence herself right when the City Girls were first coming out. So now she is in a position to where she can give back to other women who were in a similar situation as herself, which is pretty dope. So, that's what she's doing now. They've got a website. If you know anybody who is returning, or if you just got home yourself, you could go check out her website. It's the No Bars Reform. Is the name of the organization that she started. And, she says she's super excited about starting therapy. She just started therapy herself, and she encourages everybody to do the same. I actually just scheduled an appointment with my therapist for Monday, so I'm excited about getting an opportunity to do the same thing as well. So she also has a new single called No Bars. So she's kind of entering a new lane. If you know what the City Girls talk about, then this doesn't really necessarily fit in with that content. But she's kind of growing up, doing some new things, and she bringing something positive to the world. So big ups to JT. All right, we got another story where let's see. We got another story where we are talking about Tariq Nasheed. So a lot of people know him. He's a, I guess, social media influencer. He talks a lot about what is it that he talks about? He's kind of, I guess, talking about reparations a little bit and talking about people who are blacks who are born in the U.S. versus non born blacks. But anyway, he was talking about recently how he was at a casino, and the casino did not honor his winning. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, show you what's going on with Tariq Nasheed. So here's his original tweet. If you ever come to Las Vegas, avoid gambling at the New York. I won some big money on one of their slot machines, and they pulled the old they pulled the old machine malfunction con game and didn't give me what I won. I posted this on my Instagram, and several other black people said the exact same thing happened to them at this casino. So let me go ahead and play the video so you can hear directly from Tariq Nasheed himself. This is what he said.
That's not good business at all. Listen, you go to the New York hotel, they're gonna fuck you if you win a jackpot, if you win some money, dude. Do not come here and gamble at these damn places, man. You have a good night too. Man, do not gamble at New York, man. They're real dicky about these wins. They'll take your money and then void the wins on you. I won a jackpot over here at the slot machine, and they came up here and did some old machine malfunction bullshit and voided the win. That's some dirty shit, man.
So he said he wants some big money. He didn't show us where he won the big money, but he claims he won some big money, and they didn't honor his win. So I don't have a reason not to believe the brother, because when you Google it, so many people say the exact same thing. So let's just read what some of the people were talking about. I was in Vegas at the Aria and seen a guy I was playing craps with leave and hit for 600K on a Monopoly slot. They took the whole machine apart and stalled 5 hours to pay him. Every manager to owner, security came to check on him. It was wild watching. Um, People, no way I would have left without my money. You could file a complaint, report with the Nevada Gaming Control Board online or over the phone, is what one of his people said. So, um, and that's exactly right. So I want to show on my next slide where um, you're able, what the Nevada Gaming Commission says. So we're going to pull up the next slide, and they just have a website and they're talking about what to do if the machine malfunctions. This is a very common thing apparently. So they've got the phone number for all of the different areas where they have casinos: Las Vegas, Laughlin, Reno, Carson City, Elko. So they say what do I do when a slot machine I am playing malfunctions? The first thing you do is contact the casino employee. If there's a question of whether or not you have won a jackpot and you dispute the casino's response, you may telephone the gaming board's enforcement division. An agent will arbitrate the dispute. If your dispute with the casino is for $500 or more and cannot be settled, the casino is required to notify the gaming control board. So then they say, why are people denied a jackpot payment when a slot machine malfunctions? With each pull of the handle or push of the button, a slot machine begins the process of randomly selecting the next alignment of symbols. If a slot machine malfunctions, it cannot complete the random selection process and therefore reverts to a tilt mode. When malfunction occurs, some slot machine manufacturers, for engineering purposes, set the reels to stop briefly in a jackpot position. When this happens, a player may see the reels momentarily stop at a jackpot alignment and then go into a slow spin. This often causes the player to believe a jackpot has been won. In recent years, a slot machine manufacturer have changed the stop location to other than a jackpot alignment to help prevent the misunderstanding. So they just kind of go on, and they're kind of giving you a little bit of information what to do. If you're interested in that, if that ever happens, we'll make sure that we include that link as well in the show description as well. But at the end of the day, what this tells you is what we already know. When you go to Vegas, go to have fun, but it's all entertainment because, like the brother said, you may leave feeling like you got effed, and it doesn't feel good to lose money when you're depending on it. So don't gamble with money that you can't afford to lose, and like they say, gamble responsibly. So we're going to move on to the next story, and that involves a big, almost $2 billion settlement in New York City, or New York State rather, for teachers and people who were studying to be teachers who failed the teacher entrance exam. So um, basically, there were about 5,200 Black and Hispanic ex-teachers and people who were trying to be teachers who are expected to collect more than 1.8 billion because the city finally stopped fighting um, a, a case where people were citing discrimination over the exam, stating that the exam was biased. The court found that the exam violated the civil rights and allowed for far more white candidates to pass. So everybody who's going to get the money is going to get over $1 million. And actually, whether you became a teacher or not, you're entitled to the back pay that you would have been entitled to if you had actually become a teacher, as well as you're going to be able to receive a pension. So you may be eligible for a pension that for a job that you never even had, if you were one of the people who can show that they were denied a teaching certificate in New York State. Now that I think about it, when I was in law school in New York, I think I did try to be a teacher. I'm pretty sure that I applied and I took the test and I didn't pass. So I think I might be entitled to one of at least 1.5. So I'm gonna definitely be reaching out to a dope black lawyer in New York City to see if they can help me to secure my money. If you feel like this may apply to you, I'm not sure if it's too late, but it never hurts to try to reach out to someone to see if you can get help. If you need help finding a dope black lawyer in New York, holla at me and I can definitely get you connected. Um, Moving right along, you know, it's that time again. You know, we're talking about those Karens, and this is going to be something that we're going to probably see a lot. But there was a white woman who was harassing a brother while he was just trying to fish. You go to fishing thinking you're gonna get some peace, some solace, a chance to relax, but them Karens gonna find you. It don't matter where you at; they definitely gonna come find you. And she did just that. So Tanya Petty is the white woman's name, and she approached this man while he was at a neighborhood lake and was asking him where he lived and is he supposed to be there and all of this stuff. Well, anyway, we're gonna watch the video in a second, but Tanya lost her job because she was messing with this man. She actually was a massage therapist. She worked at a therapy center, and the place where she worked is quoted as saying, Sea Glass Therapy is a place of acceptance, healing, and inclusion of all people, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, or background. So they made a statement. They said, We stand against discrimination of all forms. We have terminated our business relationship with the independent contractor, Tanya, in order to uphold our values and standards. We strive to be a service to our community and do whatever we can to accommodate the needs of it, operating with integrity. So they were quick to get away from her. It's crazy that a therapy center where they're doing massage therapy is quick to cut ties, but you see places where you have doctors and nurses and people who actually have an opportunity to hold people's lives in their hands, and those employers are not as quick to make that type of movement. So we do have a video. We definitely want to show you what was going on in this neighborhood, and here we.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. You guys residents here?
Are we bothering you?
Residents here.
Don't
I
touch
just
it.
had
Just wanna.
Don't touch it.
Sorry?
That smile ain't real.
All right, well, this lake is supposedly for residents. So
Those are residents,
This
and
is for the residents here, that woman said. Well,
so yeah.
video recorded by a TikToker who goes by Fishing Bay 2GA has received millions of views in part because the white woman started.
She's like,
okay, picture of your license plates and forward it on.
hey, so y'all hear what I go through, right? This the third person. I'm in my own neighborhood, and a white person came and bothered me while I'm fishing. Another white person came and bothered me while I'm fishing. This is the third time. She's like, oh, no, I'm not giving you permission to film. This is my phone. I can film and do whatever I want. I study the law.
He is right under the law and settled court.
Yeah, he definitely can film, and she can't do Nathaniel.
Stick around because he had some questions.
Well, don't leave now. Do you want to say, hey, do you live here? Where you live? Where's
Uh
your address?
Where
oh.
do you live?
Uh-oh.
Where do you live?
This is unbelievable.
Where do you live? Why?
What's your name, by the way? Because at the next
Karen.
meeting, I'm definitely going to mention you.
Her name is Karen.
Her name is.
So yeah, so like we talked about, that's Tanya Petty, formerly employed with Sea Glass Therapy, and maybe she'll be able to use some of the same resume builders that Ron DeSantis said that slaves will be able to use right now when she's applying for new jobs. But we're going to get to that. I don't think we're quite there yet, but please stay tuned so we could talk about how slavery is a resume builder. So next, we're on to the Proud Boys. And I have a different picture I want to show because I want to show you actually the damage that they did in this story. So I just want to kind of give you actually I'm gonna do this. So while I'm sharing my screen, we're going to talk about these Proud Boys. So um, as you can see here, these guys are burning up this what this property. It's unclear what it is, but I'm going to kind of explain it to you. So the Proud Boys, which if you don't know is a right wing extremist group, they've been ordered to pay $1 million plus in a civil judgment for destroying property of a DC area church called Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal. All right. So the judge, Neil E. Kravitz, approved a default judgment against the Proud Boys, whose members are Joseph Biggs, Enrique Tario, and Jeremy Bertino and John Turano, as well as the LLC that they have. So the judge called it a highly orchestrated he called it a highly orchestrated and hateful and overtly racist conduct from members of the Proud Boys, and which they destroyed a Black Lives Matter flag. So when they jumped over the fence at this place, they went straight to where this Black Lives Matter flag was hanging, and they destroyed that first before destroying the property. And they celebrated, as you can see, in the streets, and caused a lot of destruction. So Tario, he pled guilty to this in July 2021, and was sentenced to 5 months in jail for it. So I just wanted to kind of let you see. You see, one of the guys was on here. He's squirting what looks like gasoline onto this fire, and they're having a good old time as they destroy property in front of this black church in Washington D.C. So that's about white. I mean, I would expect that, but that's more than just about white. That's super hateful, you know. And this is the kind of thing that you're going to see a lot of because post Trump, really post Obama, they brought all these people came from out of the woodworks. They're fighting to try to keep this country the way that they want the country to be, and instead of staying actually where it is, they actually want to go back to places that we actually have kind of gotten beyond. So it's very unfortunate to see that. And now we're going to go to the next story in San Francisco, where the district attorney has angered many by deciding not to bring charges against an officer who killed a black man who they say was retreating at the time of the shooting. So the police were called out to the scene where two neighbors, one had a restraining order against the man who was killed, whose name was Sean Moore. Officer Kenneth Cha, CHA, came out to assess the situation where this confrontation was happening way back in 2017. In 2021. And it was just a noise complaint, but somehow Moore and Cha ended up in a physical altercation. Cha claimed it was a self-defense, like I stated, but there is body cam footage that revealed Moore, who did strike officers before, was attempting to go back into his house when he was shot on the steps of his residence. So the district attorney stated that he didn't believe there was enough proof for him to be able to prosecute this case in good conscience, to ethically prosecute this case in good faith, were his exact words. And he implied that the charges were only brought for political reasons. So he decided to dismiss this case. And now the district attorney is dropping cases like this where officer-involved shootings took place in San Francisco, left and right. So there's 3 other cases where the same thing happened. So it's unfortunate to see, but the police have a lot of discretion when it comes to how they handle these situations because of qualified immunity. And if you don't have progressive district attorneys, state attorneys, and prosecutors, it's not very likely that you're going to see charges that are going to be brought against the police, because it's very hard to prosecute these cases to begin with, and even to go after them civilly as well. So, very sad story for Sean Moore's family, and I hope that somehow they're able to get some type of closure, some justice for this. But um, we are now at the point where I'm about to tell you about some new laws in Florida regarding Black History standards that were just released actually yesterday. So, if you've been following, Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, we talk about him almost every week, I'd say. And this week is no different, but he's brought some more crazy shit to the world. So he ran on. He became notable in the world as more than just Florida's governor by talking about stopping woke and getting rid of woke. So essentially, what woke boils down to is anything that makes white people feel bad or uncomfortable about actual events in history that took place should not be allowed to be talked about. And that leads to the Stop Woke Act that was passed this past session in Florida. So basically, um, it's called Stop Wrongs to Our Kids and Employees Act, but it's known as the Stop Woke Act. And they set a new standard for how Black history, African American history, will be taught in schools. Um, and basically, the new standard required middle school students to learn how slaves developed skills, in which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit, according to the Florida Department of Education website. So, you know, it's not all bad. You're able to take what you learn from being a slave, and you could apply that to anything else that you do in the world. Is what they're essentially saying. Um, but you won't get to learn that after slavery was over, and so many Black people became sharecroppers, that the system was still used against them, and they were unable to get ahead in the world. You were not going to be able to learn about all of the lynchings that took place post slavery, all of the riots. You're not going to be able to learn those things. So, for example, when high school students learn about events such as the 1920 Ochoe massacre, new rules required that instruction include acts of violence perpetrated against and by African Americans. The massacre is considered the deadliest Election Day violence in U.S. history, and according to several histories of the incident, it started when Moses Norman, a prominent Black landowner in Ochoe County, Ochoe, Florida, attempted to cast his ballot and was turned away by white poll workers. So you're not going to get to learn the actual history of that. You're not going to get to hear about the Atlanta race riots, the Tulsa massacre that we talked about last week. All of these things are being removed from the classroom, and it's not only happening in Florida. It's only happening in Florida first. So there are groups of people who feel the same way in many states across this country. It's not just in the South, and they're using this as the blueprint for the laws they want to see passed in their own states. So um, let's see. There was a quote by Carol Cleaver, an Escambia County, which is Pensacola teacher. She said, "These new standards present only half the truth, half the story, and half the truth. When we name political figures who worked to end slavery, but leave anyone who worked to keep slavery legal nameless, kids are forced to fill in the blanks for themselves." Current House Rep Anna Escamani said, "I'm very concerned by these standards, especially the notion that enslaved people benefited from being enslaved. It's inaccurate and a scary standard for us to establish in our educational curriculum." All right. So that's what's going on right now in Florida. It's going to be coming to you soon as well. So what the Florida is going on is a question that everybody should be asking, because when this stuff happens in Florida, you make a joke about it, but it's coming to you real soon. So if you don't like that, get ready to fight that so that it doesn't come to your state, to your area. So we're just going to quickly recap for those who just came, but JT from the City Girls has a new organization to help women who are returning home from prison to be able to rehabilitate themselves with jobs, housing, therapy, and other things that they're going to need. It's called the No Bars Reform. So we have the link that is so yeah so we have the link right here, and we're going to post it in the description. We've got Tariq Nasheed, who was telling us about how he won some money out in Vegas, and the casinos used their machine malfunction as a reason to not give him the money. And there are stories of other black people, and I'm sure other people too, but his audience is largely black, and talking about how the casinos kind of were able to beat him by claiming this. And we talked about all the different ways the casinos claim that the machines you didn't actually win. We know you saw the numbers land or the emblems all line up, but actually it's a malfunction. So we talked about that. We talked about in New York, if like me, you took the teacher's exam and didn't pass, or didn't pass right away, you could be entitled to at least $1 million in compensation plus a pension, because the test was determined to be biased against blacks and Hispanics, who passed the test at an alarmingly lower rate than white people. So, surprise, surprise, a test made by white people was passed by more white people than other non-white people. We talked about a woman who harassed a brother who was just trying to enjoy his day fishing out by the lake by his house, to find out if he was actually a resident. And she lost her job working at a therapy center. We talked about, somehow we did not talk about it. So let's talk about it. I don't see it. I don't see it in the slideshow for some reason, but Aretha Franklin, and Aretha Franklin, as you know, she died back in 2019, I believe. And after she died, they found several handwritten documents that were all purported to be a will, and basically, one was from the two that were kind of at odds the most. One was from 2010, and one was from 2014. So a jury decided that they were going to allow for the 2014 handwritten will to be the one that would be the will that they're going to say is valid. And the reason why it matters is because, let me pull up the article. But the 2010 was under lock and key, while the other one was found like under the mattress. So they're saying that someone tried to argue that one of her sons tried to argue that, well, clearly, if she locked it up, that must be the most important one. But that was the 2010, but the most recent one is the one that they allowed to stand. So the key difference to the will was that the 2010 said that in order for the sons to be able to get access to her assets, that they would have to have earned a certificate or degree in business before becoming entitled to her estate. But the 2014 version didn't say that. So I'm gonna assume that nobody has a certificate or a degree in business, and that's why they wanted the 2014 will to stand. But the key thing here is to make sure that if you have a will and then you update your will, that you destroy all of the older versions of your will, and that somebody knows where to actually find your will. So they actually tore a house apart, it sounds like, looking for these documents, and they found 3 different wills in Aretha's house in Michigan. And even more so is, don't handwrite your will. because it's not illegal in every state if they find a handwritten will. If they would have found all three of these handwritten wills in Florida, they would have all been determined to be invalid, because in Florida you can't handwrite your will. It's called a holographic will. That's the name of a handwritten will. And in Florida, they're not allowed. So definitely go see a dope black lawyer so that it can help you and guide you through your estate planning, so that you can make sure you have the right documents. I would also say that someone with as much as Aretha should not have had a will at all, but should have had some type of trust in place so that she could really, really put those terms together for what her beneficiaries needed to do in order to be able to get the money. So, a trust is the right way to go about doing that, more so than a will. But it sounds like it's going to work out. So in both versions of the will, all four of her sons were going to benefit from her music royalties and copyrights. And obviously she had provisions in place for her son, Clarence, who lives in an assisted living facility and who did not attend the trial. So I'm not sure how we skipped over that story. Probably should have had a picture of Aretha Franklin instead of these people who I've never seen before other than in this article. But I digress. It worked out for the family. They're going to get the stuff. So we had that. And then we talked about the Proud Boys who destroyed the AME church in D.C., who had a default judgment entered against them. So basically, we didn't really talk about it, but a default judgment is what happens when someone files a lawsuit against you. They have that lawsuit served through a process server or any other way of serving of process that is legal, and you don't respond to their lawsuit. They or their attorney can then go to the judge and ask for a default judgment. The judge will grant them a default judgment, and then they will have a trial for the damages, which will determine how much the default judgment will be for. So that's what happened with the Proud Boys. Out in San Francisco, the district attorney decided that they were not going to move forward with charges against an officer who killed a man who was heading back into his residence at the time when he was shot. And last but not least, we talked about how slavery is a resume builder for Americans in Florida. That story actually is in Florida. They passed a law, so they did the Black History standards for how they're going to teach it. So now it's going to be a little bit more warm and fuzzy. Instead of actually talking about what it is, they're going to say that one of the things they're going to talk about is that the skills are transferable from one industry, slavery, to another industry, I guess sharecropping, for these people. So if LinkedIn would have only been around, they probably would have been in high demand, right? So those are all of our stories for today. I always enjoy bringing you these stories, but I always want to know what you would like to hear about. So you can put it down in the comments. You can put it on any of the other social media channels that we have. Dope Black Lawyer on every social media. You can email holla at dopeblacklawyer.com or send an audio message to speakpipe.com/dope black lawyer. And if you have an actual case that you need help with for finding a dope black lawyer, you can also hit us up using these same channels, and we will connect you with a dope black lawyer in your area. But send an email or an audio message or a DM. Don't post it publicly. We don't want your case to be public. We want your case to be handled with confidentiality and remain privileged. So that's all I have for you today. It's always my pleasure, and I look forward to being back with you next week. Holla at a dope black lawyer when you see me in the street. Peace.